Good afternoon all. I hope you're all well. As you know, today we're not live. It is a pre-recorded, which I should have recorded last night because I have to go out this afternoon for a meeting, so couldn't do the live, and I didn't get it done last night, so unfortunately I'm cramming it in this afternoon, or sorry, this morning. We are on take 2 because the first one I did, we ran out of record space on the iPad, so there is a little bit of this one that I have already stuck down, so I'll just have to talk you through it. So fingers crossed. Anyway, everything that we're using today is available on our website, honeydewcrafts.co.uk. If you are overseas, we are a .com as well, but it will take you to exactly the same place, so don't worry about that. So let's go in and have a look at what we're doing. So today will probably be the last of our Christmas demos for a little while. We may come back with a few more nearer the time. So today we are using our Versamark ink. We're also using Lumberjack Plaid. Now this is just my choice of colour. It's entirely up to you what colour you want to use today. There's no rhyme or reason. And your cardstock that you're going to be using, I married my ink up to match that, so obviously I'm going to be using a red cardstock. We're also going to be using an anti-static bag. We're going to be using our Honeydew Crafts embossing powder in gold. We'll also be using our sticky glue, which comes in the 2 sizes, the 20mm or the 30mm. Blending brushes, we have the 2 sizes still. So we have the smaller one that comes in a little cap and the larger one that comes in its own little case. The clean colour pens we're using today are my traditional Christmas ones that I've been using. So we have mid green in 046, light green in 041, yellow green in 053, olive green in 043, and we may use a bit of the deep green, which is 044. We're also using the red pens in red 020 and deep red 260. Okay, so I forgot to pick up the new Tartan stencil that I should be showing you, but we are using a Tartan stencil. We are also using our Holly Ribbon stamp set. We're probably only going to use this one here, but it's a really, really useful set of stamps. So you get the 4 stars, you get the berries, you get this lovely big holly sprig, you've got the 3 holly sprigs here, your corner with the ribbons, and the lovely big ribbon here, which is that way around. So that's the Holly Ribbon stamp set. We've also got the Christmas letter, which has got Happy Christmas, from our house to yours, Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, and Dear Santa, I really tried. You've also got the postage date stamp here, which says 25th of December. You've got the 2 postage stamps, and then you've got a holly sprig, a snowflake, a holly leaf, and a Santa's hat as well on there. Tiny little ones. Okay. And then we are using our super smooth cardstock as well. That comes in 2 different weights. We got it in the 150 and, no, it's not 150, it's 250 and 300 GSM. So this card's a little bit more detailed than we have been doing. So there's a couple of bits I need to tell you about. There's a few pieces. So we are using an 8x8 card. Then you are doing 2 red pieces. This is the bit I had already done, look. So you've got 2 red pieces with your Z fold card. You're getting a slight preview of what we are doing now. And I've stuck those down first because there's quite a few bits of paper with this one, and it just gets them out of our way. We can't lose them. So these are 7 3/4 inch. Sorry. Yeah, 7. No, let's go here first. The large square one is 7 3/4 inch square. You will also be doing a white piece, which is 7.5 inch square. Your 2 red panels are 7 3/4 inches lengthways by 3 5/8. So both of those 7 3/4 by 3 5/8. You're going to be doing 2 white pieces to go on top of that, which is 3 5/8 by 7.5. So the red are 3 and 5. Oh, see, look, I've got you all confused. Start again. The red are 3 and 5/8 by 7 3/4. The white pieces are 3 and 3/8 by 7.5 inches. So that's those pieces. Then we have, let me see, because I've stuck them in, I've thrown myself off. So you then have 2 pieces of red again. They're 5.5 inch squares. So you've got 2 of those. And we've got 2 pieces of watercolour, which are 5 1/4 inch square. You don't have to use watercolour cardstock if you are not using pens that need watercolour. And then the last piece of, no, second from last piece, is 5 3/4 inch square white cardstock. There's a lot of pieces to this, I know. We also have one white piece, which is 8 3/4 by 5 3/4. I need to tell you that when you're doing this, when you're scoring or cutting your piece, unfortunately because of the sizes I've done it, you have to cut it this way. It will be 1/2 inch too short if you do it this way. So I apologise for that. Normally I'm all about the paper saving, aren't I? But this time I clearly wasn't. So that's all your pieces. You can understand why I did say in my first attempt to record this video to stick those pieces in. I did give you a little tip. Quite often people say to me, how come you don't get to see all the lines where you've glued your paper down? The reason you don't get to see those is, number one, my papers are slightly thicker than most people use. So that's a help. Sometimes you will still see the glue come through, but take your, with this, on this occasion it wouldn't matter because you're going to put another layer on the top anyway. But when you're putting your glue down, take your glue bottle very close to the paper. You don't need very much glue to hold these down. So that's another little tip which will help you stop getting those lines show through. So we did fold this card in half, and again another little tip to help you do this is I used my trusty scoreboard and I fold my card in. I've got the spine of my card butted up against the back here, and I fold my card in and push it down and score it, and then I fold it back out on itself and score it back that way. The reason I do that is if your card's maybe not quite so square, it will help retrain the card to make it a square card. So that's as far as, almost as far as I'd got on my first filming of this particular card. So we did go in and do the scoring on this. And another tip I am going to give you. A lot of people struggle to do their scoring on the 1/2 inches and below on this side because there's nowhere to hold your paper to grip it in. So I recommend you score on this side, which is at 7 1/4, 7 3/4, and 8 1/4, which will give you your folds for this section here that are 1/2 inch wide. Then spin your card round before you fold it up, leave it down flat, and score exactly the same. So 7 1/4, 7 3/4, and 8 1/4. That means you've got all that space to hold your card in place. You've got more control on where you're scoring it. And we'll just fold those pieces in so that we have got both of them going the same way. Let's move that out of the way, it'll make it easier for you to see. You can see so that they're all folded the same way. The reason they need to be folded the same way is we are going to glue this outside edge down in our finished card. If you did do our workshop, you will have already made this card, but hopefully this will give you a live reminder or somewhere to go back and have a look at. But you've made a similar version, not quite the same. We did a few little extra tricks with some bubble wrap and stuff, so that bit isn't happening in this card. So you've done your scoring. We're now going to go in and do our stenciling. So we are using our Wendy Becky Make Art Station. We're going to need to line our cardstock up because I'm using the Tartan stencil. I don't make my life easy, do I? I try and get the tartan centered on this. You don't have to do that. That's probably just my OCD beating me. If you would rather it wasn't, that's up to you. So I'm just going to position that in place. And remember, you need to hold the cardstock underneath with those magnets as well. So don't just hold your stencil down, because this is going to move underneath if you don't. Or if you do, should I say. So we're going to take Lumberjack Plaid. We're going to load our brush and blend over the top of that stencil. You can go in as light and as dark, or as dark as you want it to be. I've probably gone a bit darker than I want to, but you'll be able to see it easier on there, on the screen, which is probably a good thing. This is a really good way of practicing blending and getting control of your brushes, etc., because it's a stencil, so it's not going to really stand out if you miss somewhere, or if you overload it somewhere, or anything like that. So that is what we're going to end up with. So as I say, it doesn't matter if some areas are slightly darker than others. So you're going to do that with your 2 skinny panels. Try and line my stencil up again as best I can, and try my very best not to let OCD win me, beat me. So again, a little bit of ink on there, and we're just going to go in and blend all the way over the top. It's very strange doing a video now and not having lots of people asking me questions and being able to chit chat with everybody. So we will be back doing lives, just don't panic. There may be a few that we won't be live for, but we aren't ditching all the lives. Just maybe not quite as many as we would, maybe not every week. We're not sure how it's going to work yet, but fingers crossed. So there is our second panel done. Now we also want to do that big panel that's going on the inside. You can leave it white if you would prefer, but you don't need to put the magnets down on here. I'm just going to go in. You don't need to worry about the middle, because we're going to stick something over the top of the middle. So I'm just going to take the ink that's already on here. I'm not going to load it up. Not necessarily perfect. I'm not going to go too close to any edges. I'm going around the edge. I'm going to this edge of the cardstock. I'm not going to go to the edge here. I don't want a harsh line along the edge there. And it doesn't need to be too heavy. Saying that, it's not particularly light either. You can, if you want to, you can go around and line this all up. As I said, I do sometimes think my OCD beats me, and I don't need to be quite as precise as I am, but I do tend to get a bit like that. That's why I don't normally use a stencil with lines on it when I'm doing something like this. But you can go in and just be as random as you like. She says, being the least random I've ever been doing a stencil. But now that I've started it, I've got to finish it, haven't I? As you noticed, I haven't added any extra ink. I'm just going in and taking the ink off that's left on the stencil. This is where it's going to trip me up, look. But rough idea, you all know what I mean. So we've stenciled that. As I said, don't worry about this centerpiece, we're not going to be using that. And that's all your stenciling done, so you can pop that away out of your way. She says, and I've got nowhere to put it. So we're finished with the stencil board as well. I'm just going to wipe that down, because otherwise I'm going to get that red ink absolutely everywhere. Because red's a bit like the mustard seed, isn't it? It goes on forever. So that's always the stenciling we're doing. We do need to do a little bit of blending on a couple of pieces. So that one piece that we had, which was 5.5 inches, no, 5 3/4 inch square, just one piece of it, you're going to go around the outside edge. Now, I don't know if you haven't gone back and seen some of our earlier videos, partly why I do blending like this, particularly if I'm using watercolour cardstock, is watercolour cardstock doesn't tend to be particularly white. It can have a bit of a creamy finish to it. And if we put those two pieces together, you can see that they're different colours. But if I do that on top, and then we'll blend this one as well, the colour you actually see is the red, not the cream of your watercolour cardstock. So it's just a little tip to help you get round those extra bits. Also, we need to ink this piece, which is the piece you've scored. Be a little bit careful, don't be too heavy-handed with this. I would recommend that you position those pieces a little bit flatter, but again, don't be too heavy-handed, because otherwise you're going to pick up where your score lines were on the edge, and you'll end up with lines across here, and you don't really want that. So please on this one, just think about how much pressure you're putting on there. So that gives that piece inked. You can ink these edges if you want. You're not really going to see them. So if you would like those inked, go ahead and do it. That's your choice. That's all the inking I'm going to do for now. Again, I'm just going to pop these pieces. Now, these three stenciled pieces are all going to fit into this card. So I am again going to just quickly stick those down, because it means that it's 2 pieces less for me to lose. It's 3 pieces less for me to lose, isn't it? Not 2 pieces. And then we'll stick these 2 on here. Got my nail polish on and I can't pick things up. There's only nail polish. What would I be like if I had acrylic nails on? Be useless, wouldn't be able to do anything. I don't know how some people do it with some of the lengths they do. Most of them beautiful artwork on them, but I couldn't work with them. Well done to those of you that do. So again, our tartan pieces are now positioned on the card, so that's again 3 more pieces. So that's 6 pieces less for you to look for to put this card all together, because you're halfway there. All right. Now, we are going to go on to the fun stuff. Or are we? We might get ahead ourselves a little bit as well. Okay, so that white piece that you blended, we're going to stick a piece of red on the top. I promise I haven't lost the plot. So that's that piece. Again, pop that off to one side. This piece that you have inked up, that you've scored and folded, we are also going to stick that down. Now you're going to be saying, well, what's that other white piece for that we just inked? Doesn't make sense. So you will now see that these 2 pieces, so your piece at the front here and this piece, are the same size. When we put this card together, it will make complete sense. But the reason we had that extra white piece there is you needed to make this more sturdy than just having that one layer of the cardstock with the watercolour cardstock. It will make sense, I promise. So those pieces, again, don't stick them down any further than that at the moment. You're just going to pop them off to one side. Now we get to do the fun stuff. So we are going to take our watercolour paper. Grab all my stamps together now. I'm going to surround me. says, and I'm just about to drop them all. I was very organised. Look, I got them all on my blocks before I started the film. Just because you know me, I forget something. So, Versamark ink, a light wipe with the anti-static bag. Versamark ink onto our Christmas letter stamp. Now remember, this piece in the middle is solid. It's photopolymer. We leave that piece in so that it stays the shape it needs to be. But please, when you're inking it, try and avoid inking over the top of this centerpiece. Purely because depending on how much pressure you put, you could quite easily put ink on here. You won't see the ink on there until you go to press it down, particularly if you're using a stamping press or if you've got a spongy piece underneath you. I always stamp on the hardest work surface I can find. This isn't a dining table, believe it or not, once upon a time, that I use now. Kitchen cabinet when I'm not filming. So I use the hardest piece, flat surface I can find. So we're just going to step this down roughly in the middle. In fact, we will maybe bring this camera in a little bit. That'll do me for a minute so that you can see what we're doing. So it's a big stamp, so make sure you put lots and lots of time and pressure on there. And while I'm doing that, I'm frantically looking for something to put my embossing powder back into the pot with, because I haven't got anything out ready, but I found something that will work. So one piece I forgot, look, I don't think I'm on there very straight either, but it will come together in a minute. So we're going to put a little bit of gold embossing powder on here. You will be pleased to know I have made this ahead of time as well. So if this isn't straight, we'll just show you the colouring in. We won't use this piece. Give it a flick. It's not hugely out of place, but it isn't perfectly straight. Sorry, people. I certainly wouldn't be wasting it for that anyway. And just pop that there. Now it's entirely up to you. It depends how confident you are as to what you do next. I am actually going to go in and build it all up together and then go and heat emboss it all together. But if you would prefer to heat emboss it first and then go back in and heat emboss each piece, that is completely up to you. But I am going to go in and do this as I'm going along. All you need to do is avoid touching where that embossing powder is already, which I would imagine you're going to avoid anyway. So I'm going to pop that piece down. So that's our date stamp done. Then I am going to take my stamp, ink that one up. Again, lots of little light taps to get that ink on there. Bear in mind I'm doing this at quite a distance to where I'm sat as well, so I'm doing it over. Can't really see where I'm going with it. And then we're going to take the tiny little holly sprig and we're going to ink that one up again. Lots of little light taps. And then we're going to position that. I'm going to have to bring it in a little bit closer. Sorry, ladies and gents. Go this way around. And I'm going to position that inside there. I have worked quite quickly to do that because I would quite like to make sure that embossing powder stays wet. And on the watercolour cardstock it can dry out a little bit quicker for some unknown reason. I suppose it's because it's a bit more absorbent. So we've got those pieces on. Now all I need is my sentiment in the middle, which I'm going to go with our Merry Christmas one. So we will ink Merry Christmas up. And pop that on there. And gold embossing powder on that too. So that is our front top piece, topper made. I call them toppers, but they're handmade toppers, aren't they? They're not just any old topper. You've made them right from scratch. So we're going to go in and heat that. Again, I will heat it from underneath. It does take a little bit longer to heat from underneath, but you get a better finish. So bear with me while I heat this up. I don't know how to speed it up on the video, so I'll go as quick as I can. Trying to do it so that you can see it all change as well. But what this does if you're new to heat embossing is you are changing the powder to a solid by melting it. Mind your fingers underneath here, these heat guns do get warm. There is nothing wrong from heating from above. If you are happier to do it that way, please feel free to. Okay, so that is that piece done. We're also just going to take the other piece of watercolour that we had previously mentioned, and I'm just going to do the stamping on that first and heat emboss that, and then we're done with all the heat embossing. So I'm going to pop my sentiment in the middle first. So this one says, from our house to yours. Now when you put sentiments on, I'm pressing down on that, but I'm not pressing really, really hard. The reason I say that is because if you press too hard with sentiment, you push all the ink out to the sides, particularly if you're going to emboss it like we are. You push all the ink out to the sides, which means the embossing powder will only stick to the sides of your sentiment, not the full wording. And I didn't do my anti-static bag, so we will use the anti-static bag before we do the next bit on the two corners. And I'm also going to take that holly sprig that I showed you earlier, oh, better in the white, wasn't it? That's got a ribbon on there as well. So I'll just grab my anti-static bag in these two top corner and this bottom corner here, because they're the two places I'm going to stamp it onto. So lots of little light taps all over the stamp. And then I'm going to repeat it in the bottom corner. That still leaves you plenty of room to sign your card, and it's a really nice finish to it. And again, we're going to pop some gold embossing powder on there. And I'll put that back in the pot. Another quick blast with the heat tool, and then that's all our embossing done as well. 2 moments, ladies and gents. So that's our centerpiece. Okay, so now we've got to do some colouring. So we're going to take our colours. I'm going to work on the holly leaves first, because the red, if you smudge it, goes such a long way. So does the green, but not in comparison to the red. So I'm going to pick, let's see, let's go with olive green. I think we'll try light green. And I'm going to go light green. No, I'm not going to go light green. I'm going to go dark green. So we've got olive green, dark green and yellow green for this particular piece. Don't forget you need your piece of tissue, kitchen paper for your blotting. So I'm just going to go in along that centre line with a bit of the dark green, back in across that centre line and over the top of those two colours with the olive green, and then my yellow green just to pull that colour out and blend that across the holly leaf. I do it in circular motions because it helps you blend those lines away and not end up with a solid, you can see where your lines have been and where you've coloured and where you haven't coloured. Let's see if we can go in any closer to this. I know it's not a particularly pretty sight, but hopefully it will help you. Be careful not to smudge that when you're doing this. So I'm going to go in with the dark lines there. Then I'm going to take my olive green over the top, and then my yellow green just to pull that colour out. Doesn't have to be perfectly blended, it gives you a little bit of a variegated look to it. So dark green, olive green, and then yellow green to pull the colour out. I go onto the scrap piece of paper with my yellow green afterwards and just scribble on there. That takes that darker colours out of the nib of the yellow green. I'm just going to blot that really quickly and see quite a bit comes out. And that's where it's been sat on where your embossing powder is. And if you smudge that, you're going to cry. I know, because I've done it many a time. Dark green, olive green, light green. Dark green, olive green, yellow green. And take the excess ink off your lighter colour. Dark green, olive green, yellow green. And blot. So you're going to go round and you're going to do all of those. I'm now going to take my mid green and my yellow green to do my mistletoe. So again, a little bit of mid green and then my yellow green to pull it out. I don't know if the mid green's maybe a bit light. Let's try popping in a little bit of the olive green. Yeah, I think it needs a bit of the olive green as well. So we've got mid green, olive green, yellow green to pull it out. I'm going to rush here now. I'm doing more than one at a time because otherwise we're going to be here watching me colour forever. It's not the most exciting thing in the world to watch, is it? Especially when I stick a pen right across the middle of the screen and blot. Now, I did say to you I had done one earlier, so I have got it finished, and I'm not going to colour this in any further. All I did was I took my reds and did the berries. I went round this little frame here, and I've also gone around the frame of the actual letter, just to make it pop a little bit. I'm going to show you that, but I wanted to also remind you, remember we blended those other two pieces? Oh, wrong way. I wanted to come back this way. Sorry, I'm going to make you all seasick. Whoop. Remember we blended those two pieces before we layered them up? We need to blend around the edge of this as well. So again, wait till that's dry. It will be much more successful if you wait till it's dry. I just can't do that because I've got to show you what we're doing. So I'm going to go around the edges of your watercolour cardstock, just with whatever ink residue is left on there, just to take the creaminess away from that. We're going to do the same with this piece. Coloured the holly leaves exactly the same. When you do the ribbons, you need to just colour those in with, again, with, I did it with the two reds, and we're going to end up with something like this. I'm going to come in a bit closer on them for you. I'm just aware that I've been waffling for a long time already. I do like a waffle, as you know. So that's the finished stamp. As I said, I did the berries with the red. I went round the edge of this frame with the red, and I've done the little postage stamp with the red, and obviously the leaves as well. I would love to pop a few gems on here as well, so just give me a couple of moments. I'm going to do it with pearls in the where the mistletoe berries would be. So we're just going to pop a couple of pearls on here. Just in on those mistletoe berries. I think it's just a nice way to finish it off. And the same on the opposite side. Sticky didn't come off the mat with that one. Let's try again. That's better. Didn't come off the carrier sheet. So I've just popped a couple of little berries, tiny little pearls on there for the mistletoe berries, just to give it a little bit of dimension. So again, we'll pull back out so we can see me put this all together now. So that's all your basic pieces done. I know it does seem like I've thrown a lot of information at you, but if you go back and watch it bit by bit, I hope it will make sense. So this is going to be your top, this is your top layer, which isn't folded. It's the flat piece that we've popped the red colour on the top, and we're going to stick this down now with your outside sentiment on it, or your, in this case, Christmas letter stamp on it. Stick that piece together. This one is going to go on the piece that you concertinaed. We're going to stick that down. So that's our middle piece done. So there are two panels. So that makes sense to you now. Remember, we had that extra white square that was 5 3/4 inch square, which married up to the size of your concertina piece. Because when we put this card together, they're going to look like they're on top of each other. So we're now going to go back to this. I need to come out a little bit further. I haven't got enough screen on there, look. There, I think that should just about cover us. So we've got all our pieces now put together. So this piece is going to go in here. And see what I mean about by blending around the edge, you lose the fact that this is a bit white, a bit creamier than your actual base cards were. So we're going to pop a little bit of glue on here. If you would prefer to use red tape, you can. I like glue because it gives me a little bit of wiggle room to get this positioned where I want it. So if you are going to use a tape, I would suggest you put a little bit of glue on there as well, so you've got some wiggle room. Without wearing most of the glue, which is what I've just done, we now want to stick this down roughly in the middle of the card, or as middle as you can do it by eye, and press that down. Now I did make sure my concertina pieces were tucked underneath there as I stuck it down. Can you see? So when I positioned it down, I held on to these two pieces and brought them in against the back of the card, so it was basically I was putting it down flat as I can. You're then going to close this piece up. This is going on the front here, but you only remember you're only gluing 1/3 of this card. So give yourself a marker if you really need to on your topper, but you're just doing 1/3 of this card, no more. And then line it up with your piece underneath and press that down. And hopefully you will end up with a lovely Christmas card like that. So you've got some dimension all the way around it, and it's going to open up and sit lovely on somebody's mantelpiece, like so. So fingers crossed you've all enjoyed that particular card. I do just want to quickly come in and show you the card that we did on the workshop, and it's exactly the same concept, except we did a little trick with our stencils and our bubble wrap. So we inked the bubble wrap up, we placed a stencil on a piece of white cardstock before we put the cardstock onto the bubble wrap. I will show you this further down the line, not something I can do today. So you put your stencil onto your white cardstock, you ink some bubble wrap up, you flip your white cardstock onto your bubble wrap so that your stencil is on the in between the paper and the bubble wrap. Press it all down, lift it back up, and then before you take the stencil off the back, take your blending brush over the top, take the excess ink that's on that stencil and blend it in, and you'll pick up all of these little circles or whatever stencil you're using. So that is the same concept. This panel here was slightly smaller, which meant I could make my pop out slightly bigger on this one. I don't know if I can show you. So these pieces here were, I believe, 1 inch, whereas these were 1/2 inch. But it doesn't make that much difference to it. But that's the two concepts of the same card. So as I say, we did the Christmas one. I just want to quickly as well come in with the same card that we did last week. So again, this was at a workshop we did. So this is the one we did last week with the trestle fencing. And this is the version we did on the workshop, which we did with our Forget Me Not stamp set and our sentiments. So it's lovely in either a Christmas or just as a general card. So I wanted to share those with you because I forgot to have those here last week when I was doing that. So there you go, that's the finished card. So I'm going to quickly run through what we've used again. We've used the white cardstock, and you've also got whatever colour cardstock from your stash to coordinate with your inks. We've used the Holly Ribbons stamp set. We've used our Christmas letter stamp set. We've used Lumberjack ink. We've used a Versamark ink pad. We've used an anti-static bag. We've used our sticky glue in the 2 different sizes. We've used our gold embossing powder. I've used the one without glitter, but if you want to add a bit of glitter, go for it. We've used some blending brushes, and we have used the Zig Cling Colour pens in lots of different colours. So the reds are red 020 and deep red 260, and the greens are mid green 046, deep green 044, light green 041, yellow green 053, and olive green 043. So that's everything we have used, and this is our finished card. I will take a picture of this to put it all together for you in a little while, and it will be uploaded on our Facebook page as well. So that's me all finished. Look at me, look, drag through the hedge backwards. Everything we've used today is available on our website, honeydewcrafts.co.uk. The measurements, I can write those down if anybody would like them. Just ping me an email and I can send that over to you. Hopefully it was clear enough by the time we got that video going. So we've got a busy couple of weeks still to go before the summer break, really. We are this Saturday at the Motorcycle Museum at just on the same roundabout as the NEC is on, in Birmingham, Coventry area. And the following weekend we will be at Crafting Live at Doncaster, at the Doncaster Racecourse. So that is the 15th and 16th of July. Hope to see lots of you there. I know it's a really fun show to go to. There's lots and lots of exhibitors, so hope to see lots of you there. Come along and say hello. Next week's video, hopefully I'll be able to remind you of what stand number we are. I think we are D7, D1. I know we're in D, but I will double check that. Have a lovely week, and we will see you all either live or pre-recorded next Wednesday. I will let you know. Keep an eye on our Facebook page. Just type in Honeydew Crafts, or on our YouTube page. Again, also just type in Honeydew Crafts and we will come up. Have a lovely week. See you all soon. Take care. Bye.